Yield, coverage, sprayability, all of that starts at the drum. To me, it starts at the drum each and every single day. Conditioning the drums, conditioning the trailer, conditioning the space. If you're hitting all of those points and making sure you're within those allowances set by the manufacturer, you're going to have a lot better day, a lot better coverage, and ultimately the sprayer is going to be a lot happier at day's end because he's not battling it all day long.
This is the one and only, the original podcast where you can find yours and your business's true value. You're listening to Our Value.
Brought to you by America's Insulation Source, IDI Distributors.
You want to hear from the best contractors, suppliers, and consultants that dedicate themselves to more than just survival in the business world?
Industry professionals that are dedicated to excellence in every aspect of their business.
Our Value has them all here to share that same motivation and knowledge with you. Tune in and grow a more successful, profitable, educated, and recognized business. Listen to the Our Value podcast to become the industry leader in your market. Find your value with Our Value.
Well, welcome to the Our Value podcast. If you spray foam, this is one you are going to want to hear. I know we've gotten lots of calls on this one, and I'm sure, maybe all of you have had a little extra joy this year when it comes to spraying closed cell foams. I know this came about when we switched blowing agents, but me personally, I would just blame it on the sprayer. There we go. Just kidding. Actually, this change in blowing agents is exactly why I wanted to bring two experts on to talk about why and to offer some solutions to make lives better. First, I'd like to start with Mary Bogdan. Mary has been on the supply side of spray foam raw materials and chemistry for over 30 years. She's with Honeywell, and if anyone knows blowing agents, it's Mary. Mary, welcome to the podcast today.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Next up is someone you may know, TJ Miller. TJ has been spraying foam since 2007. TJ, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, good morning, Ken, and good morning to you as well, Mary.
Good morning, TJ.
I sounded like I was introducing people for the dating game.
Now that's the podcast after this one, Ken.
Yes, here's your sprayer of the year. So I know at the ICAA there was a lot of chatter. Had several manufacturers come by the booth, contractors, and it was about contractors struggling with spraying the new closed cell formulations. And I want to start off with Mary here, especially after talking with her and being reminded that we were here before. You know, you're the first person that said that to me, Mary, was, hey, we've been here before. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes. So the industry, I'm really proud of the applicators and what they do for a living. And the industry has been through several changes. We started with CFC technologies, and then we went to HCFCs, and then HFCs, and now HFOs. And with each change, there has been things that have need to be adapted and changed in the formulation as well as how it's applied. Honeywell's been in this space from the beginning, and we work hard with our systems houses and the contractors to understand what the differences are and to make a better solution for the environment. I personally have worked since CFC 11 times, and there's been a lot of changes in formulations. For instance, 141B. boiled at 90 degrees. So when you put that drum out there, it behaved very differently. We use 3 times the amount of blowing agent in that formulation than you're currently using. And then you went to 245 that had a much lower boiling point. It was 60 degrees, and there were issues there. People were like, oh, it's just coming off the surface, very different in how it performed. And now we have another one, a higher boiling point, very different structure. So the systems houses have changed their formulation to match it with the blowing agent and the field performance. So it is really critical in this stage that we look at what the systems houses are saying as far as application temperatures. Because you know what? Think about this. If something boils at 60 degrees, you're going to treat it a whole lot different when you put heat to it than if something boils at 90. So things to think about. And we're really here to help and educate, make sure that this goes well for everybody. This blowing agent has been out for over 10 years. Some people have successes. The formulation continues to be improved by everybody in the value chain, both the co-suppliers as well as the systems houses.
I like it. I know it. You just made it so simple when you said, well, we had to turn up the temperature on 141B. We turned it down for 245FA. We got to go back up.
You got to change it. You got to match it, because remember, these blowing agents are physical. You want them to evaporate at that temperature, and you want it to be at the right point in application. So you need to kind of match those things. And that's what the systems houses, that's why they give you instructions.
I like it. Now, TJ, I know you've seen quite a bit of success in the field with the new systems. Can you talk about the settings that you're using and what changes you've found success with the most people?
I think there's certain parts of the country that have probably transitioned in more seamlessly, just because, like to Mary's point, some of these formulations have been out for 2014, late 2014. So, but here in the Midwest where I'm at, a lot of guys that have been spraying foam for a long time have, neglected to make the transition because, they're still using the 245 FAs, and their mindset is, don't fix it if it ain't broke. And so we've been trying to push them to make this transition because it is a learning curve. It is a different chemistry. It has different abilities and inabilities to what they're traditionally used to. I mean, some of the new ones for sure, definitely liking more heat on the application side. The drum temperatures are extremely important. I think guys had a little bit more forgiveness with the traditional 245 FA, just being more aggressive and creating more heat during application. You don't really have that get out of jail free card with these new formulas. Drum temperatures are extremely, extremely important. A lot of the calls I'm getting this time of year are just having, not just the sprayability not being where they want it. They're not getting the right coverages. And most of the time it leads back to the drums just being slightly too cool. That 60-degree mark, can you get those drums to spray at 60 degrees? Most of the time, probably. But you know what? You're gonna struggle on the application side. The yield ain't gonna be there. The sprayability isn't gonna be there. And contractors in certain times, they're quick to want to blame the product, but that's why, and Mary just touched on it there, you have to go kind of back to the guide. And again, these all have different abilities and inabilities, and we need to adhere to those manufacturer guidelines. They do the testing on these, and they give you the information. In an application guide or a processing packet, it almost tells you how to process this foam. And if you step outside of those boundaries, that's where they really struggle. So they liked more heat. The drum temperatures are extremely, extremely important. Being at that 75 to even upwards of 80 degrees in some of these formulations, they like to be warmer in the drum, which ultimately, you're just going to have better sprayability and better coverage and just ultimately a better day out on the end of the spray foam hose for sure.
So weren't you having, though, some better results being 10 degrees different, 10 degrees hotter on one side than the other and doing some things like that in the field?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely is seeing more of that kind of offset between your primary heaters. I don't think the offset needed to be as much with the 245 formulations. We are seeing even 10, some words even upwards of 15-degree offsets between your A and your B primary heaters, more so than we were seeing with the traditional 245 FAs. So that B side, it likes a little bit more heat. It likes to be kicked off a little bit more aggressively from the start. And so, yeah, definitely seeing a lot more offset in those primary heaters on most machines. And it depends on the machine. A lot of these machines have different size heaters. So it does vary, but definitely seeing that offset being more relevant with these formulations versus the traditional 245 FAs for sure. You're getting a little bit more forgiveness in the winter formulations just because they're a little bit more sped up. But again, I would tell contractors that even in a winter formulation, that's still not a get out of jail free card. If you're looking for coverage, if you're looking for sprayability, I tell guys all over the country, Ken and I, you and I talk about it in class all the time. Yield, coverage, sprayability, all of that starts at the drum. To me, it starts at the drum each and every single day. Conditioning the drums, conditioning the trailer, conditioning the space. If you're hitting all of those points and making sure you're within those allowances set by the manufacturer, you're going to have a lot better day, a lot better coverage, and ultimately the sprayer is going to be a lot happier at day's end because he's not battling it all day long.
So I have one follow-up to that because you mentioned it was part of my next question. I didn't know if I was too early or if you've gotten the winter formulas out already and started using them. But are you seeing on those that it's more like maybe a 7-degree difference, or are you still up in that 10 to 15 degree range?
Yeah, I would say it's probably not as high as the summer formulations, but yeah, you're still in that 7 to 10 degree range for sure. It just likes a little bit more heat from the start to kick it off. Summer formulations are slightly higher in that 10 to 15, but winter formulations still having an offset, not as aggressive, probably in that 7 to 10 degree range for sure.
Okay. Now, go ahead, Mary.
TJ, when you think about it, think about the difference in boiling point between those blowing agents. One boils at 60, the other boils at 66. So your temperature makes a lot of sense, because when people went from 141B that had really high boiling point and they first sprayed 245, it's like, oh, this stuff is jumping off the surface.
Right.
Because you're at a 30-degree temperature. We can't control this. And then they got very used to it and thought, this is great. I dialed back my heat. I didn't need it. So now this follows true with the change in blowing agent. It's going to have a higher boiling point. So it's physical. It's just got to heat up, got to get there.
Now, Mary, I have to say, I was really glad to see Honeywell involved from the start. I know you came up to all the booths at the show. No sooner had we started hearing from contractors that you reached out to ask if we had. So can you talk about some of the projects or testing that you guys are working on and what you're seeing? Because I know you're not, quote, taking this lying down. You guys are proactively really going into this and doing some testing.
So we really have, we've had a lot of experience with each of these transitions, and we have a lot of experience on our team. If you kind of add up everything, we have over 260 years experience in this industry. And every transition, the success is us communicating and talking to each other and understanding what's causing a failure in the field, where the challenge is. And so we can kind of help educate the contractors, help provide the information that's necessary. And one issue that we heard recently is that there's splits and stud cavities. And those showed up about 5 years ago. And there was some work done by a systems house in New Hampshire. And they developed a test procedure. And we said, okay, maybe it's time to bring this out to the industry as a whole. We solved it 5 years ago with the folks that transitioned at that point in time. And so we said, we'll step up. We'll lead the task force. We'll provide our lab and our resources to testing. And a critical thing is that when people test foams for certification, it's a comparative test method in the ASTM, not a field test method. So we look to see for contractors where they're seeing failures, and then how to what causes that. The effort that's currently being done in the SPFA is looking at different spray techniques, looking at time between lifts, and looking at the pressure that we might see on the assembly. We sprayed 24 different samples, in jigs that in essence measure pressure. And with the SPFA, we're going to present this at Spray Foam, basically to help contractors understand what impact on pressure and success in the field has in a building assembly. So we're looking to not only take the end test methods that we use for certification, but help develop field procedures to help understand what might be causing failures, how to improve application techniques.
So you said that really quickly. Just to say it again, your team, the research you're conducting, you are planning to have some information ready to share at the SPFA conference coming up in February, correct?
Yes, there will be a panel presentation by Rick Duncan, Sean White, and myself presenting the information that we've got.
In the meantime, is there anything you may want our contractors or technicians to share back with your team of what they see in the field?
So I think that the communication is critical here, right? Somebody came forward and said, okay, we are seeing stresses in the assembly. So, this is why this was started. There's stresses in the assembly. If there's other failures, let's think about how we can duplicate that so that we can determine what might be causing that and get, not just get actual data, numbers. Let's figure out how we can measure this to improve it. A lot of times we come up with solutions that are just field based, but there's no number that says, okay, this is what actually caused the difference. And we're looking to have data that kind of supports what we're seeing in the field for corrections.
We could consider this a different subject. I'm not really sure it is, but Mary, I know the two of us have talked about education in our industry, and it's probably because of, starting as a grunt in HVAC, but I've always been a big fan of licensing, education. I wanted to get your thoughts on requiring education, or do you ever see this as a licensed trade? And I know since I spoke with you, I will also tell you that even BPI, the Building Performance Institute, has said that if we weren't looking at full licensing, they would even consider just an ANSI standard for sprayers, where sprayers could get a 2-year certification, just like a building analyst or anyone else. But I just wanted to get your thoughts on it because, we've been at this a while.
I've been impressed in the 30 years I've been in this industry with how talented and basically how informed this industry is. But we really are successful at our jobs through education and information and learning things, and having the ability to learn it. When you think about proper training and education makes for a smooth, safe transition to newer formulations, but also ensures that our market can grow, gives us credibility. So we've supported the PCP program and SPFA. We are a firm believer that education and sharing information and making sure everybody knows what they're doing is critical to the success of this industry.
I would agree. I have a question for you, TJ. I know your team gets loads of calls, but for every call you get, do you think there's a lot of people out there just trying to figure it out on their own?
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. Depends on where contractors are located. Certain states have already, made the transition years ago to the HFO being HFO standard. But, here in the Midwest where I live, none of the states really adopted that. And there's a lot of guys that are kind of waiting until the end here. Us as an industry, we've tried to make that transition earlier because it is a learning curve, right? It's different chemistry. It's different products. These are proprietary blends. They all have different abilities and inabilities. They process and perform at different rates and times. So we've tried to do that. And to Mary's point, I could not agree more. Education, I think, is everything in this industry. I've been, in the industry for 17 years now. And I'm learning and growing and I've learned plenty of new things just, being on this call for the last 20 minutes, there's always something to learn. And we're trying to do our absolute best. We're trying to, to get out there and spend time with as many contractors and crews and applicators that we can. But it is a learning curve. And I really hope that, when contractors are going to just make this transition, we need to get rid of the mindset that it's just foam. It's not. It's different chemistry. It behaves differently, and there is a learning curve to it. So I would, furthering education, take advantage of the levels of support that you have, engage with your supplier, with your distributor, or whoever you get your foam from. Engage with them, take advantage of their folks, their support staffs. Because we're all here to help, and we want everybody to succeed and do well and perform very well in the field and have great application. But yeah, I would say so, Ken. Unfortunately, yeah, some guys are trying to figure out on their own. There's a lot of guys that are making this transition right here at the end, and we can only get to so many, in a certain amount of time. So we're doing our best. I think the industry as a whole is doing their best. We're trying to make sure we provide as much education as we can, for sure.
I think, part of the question then has to come back to so many sprayers will never know what gets talked about at this convention. As an industry, I guess a lot of it is I'm shocked sometimes to see how few are members of the industry. I'll talk to them. I'm like, wait, you're a manufacturer. You're not installing finished goods. It's like a doctor not being part of the American Medical Association. This is opinion, but after this convention, I guess my question to both of you, I'll start with TJ and end with Mary, but as an industry, how do you think we can make sure coming out of this convention that most sprayers know this stuff? Is it training our techs, doing newsletters. Is there something more?
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think it's just going to go back to what we just highlighted. I mean, it's prioritizing education and training. I think contractors are, let's face it, they're busy. They got a lot of work to do, and prioritizing furthering education and training sometimes gets, pushed to the back burner. And it's unfortunate. It's tough. I get it. I've been there. I've been in the contractor world, but I think prioritizing, like to Mary's point that she just made as well, I think prioritizing furthering education for our teams is so, so important. So often I think when contractors are under the gun or somebody calls in sick or maybe somebody leaves for a different opportunity, we get guys that are, have no spray foam experience at all that are thrown into a rig and they're on a job site and they're applying foam. And that just can be disastrous. I think that's where some of the horror stories in our industry that we see and some of the pictures and the failures and things can come from, to the point you just make, Ken. This isn't finished goods that we're just taking and installing. This isn't just a bat knife and a stapler and we go to work. We're taking chemicals. We're literally manufacturing finished goods each and every single day. And there's a lot that goes into it. And so, just throwing somebody in a trailer, giving them a suit and a mask and telling them to go to work just can't be the way we do it. We have to educate our teams. We have to educate our crews and make sure they know and understand the expectations of this job and how to do it and how to do it the correct way.
I see within the SPFA and the 5-year goals is that they're trying to partner with trade schools so that, similar to air conditioning, refrigeration, and heating, that there is an entry-level education, a formal education program. I mean, we have two components to educate in this industry. We have people who are brand new, as you said, who can buy a truck tomorrow and say, I'm spraying foam. And the other is continuing education, and I think that with social media, and you guys do a great job with your podcasts, but, we've got the ability now since COVID to think about different ways of educating, whether it's, podcasts or videos to say, okay, if you see this might be the cause. But as an industry, and you guys do a phenomenal job of educating people, maybe it's time to have, to think about different ways of doing this. My husband, who's an educator, said that people learn 3 ways. Some people learn by doing, some people learn by reading, and some people learn visually. So we need to address those 3 components of education and ensure that we're helping our contractors get the information.
I got a question, Mary, because we look at this as tenured, and your husband's an educator. I think what I might do is, so often the documents that we make at the SPFA are behind a wall. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if we could try and make this one. Because like you said, Sean's involved, Rick's involved. And we've talked about the high lifts. Are these enough that maybe we can just put them out to the public, not behind the firewall, but where everyone can grab them, member or not? And also maybe IDI publish them and put them out. I'm just trying to figure out how to get more because, as we are the best regulators of ourselves, and we're the ones who have done it this long, and they continue to let us do it. So I'm just, I would love it if everybody had it available, and no matter who you go to, no matter who you talk to, you just go, here, there's the document. This is a little more information on processing the new blowing agents. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there.
So I think that's a great question to bring up to the SPFA. And the steering committee and the board of directors, bring that opportunity up to them and see what response you get.
Yeah, I'll happily do it. Well, thank you both for doing this. It's one of those subjects that, it's not going to be as fun and interesting. It certainly doesn't help your marketing budget, but you know what? There's people out there that are having a challenge with this, and hopefully, they can turn to you, they can turn to TJ, they can turn to Mary, they can turn to IDI. But wherever you guys turn, just realize we want nothing but success for you. We really hope that the chemicals you're going out and putting into people's houses, that they're turned into beautiful foam with great cell structure that stays where you put it and it stays in place and it's not putting undue stress on the structure and things like that. We just want to help you guys be better. But Mary, thank you so much for coming on today. I know this is unusual for you guys.
Having me.
Yeah, you said it was your first podcast, right?
It is. It is. It's, you guys do a great job of education, and thank you for everything you do. And we're looking to support you, and thank you for the opportunity to get this information out.
Absolutely. And thank you for coming on, TJ, as well.
Absolutely. I love spending time with you, Ken. But yeah, no, I one last note to anybody, I would just say take advantage of the levels of support that you have from your manufacturer, your distributor. Everybody has technical teams that just want to make sure that you succeed and you do it right. And that's what we're here for. We love it. We're spray foam guys through and through. We want to get out in the field and work with you. So take advantage of that. We just want to make sure it's to the point you just made, Ken. We want to make sure you do it the right way. The foam stays where you put it, and ultimately you just have great success at day's end.
Absolutely. Well, that's it for today, folks. Reach out to any of our techs if you have questions on any product that IDI sells. Just reach out to your local branch or any of us at IDI, where we look forward to earning your business every day.